The cold wind howled through the broken trees, carrying with it the smell of ash and old smoke. The world had once been full of life. Cities, people, lights, and laughter. Now it was silent. The earth was frozen, the sky gray and heavy, and snow covered everything like a white grave. Ethan walked slowly through the forest, his boots sinking deep into the snow. His clothes were torn, his beard thick and frozen with ice. He had been alone for months, maybe years. Time had stopped meaning anything after the fall of the cities. The machines had stopped working, the farms had died, and people had disappeared. Now there was only one goal left: survive another day. Ethan carried a small knife and a handmade spear. His stomach hurt badly. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. The snow made hunting almost impossible. There were no birds, no rabbits, no footprints, and only silence. Every day he set traps in the forest, hoping something would get caught. But each morning the traps were empty. Still, he didn't stop trying, because giving up meant dying. He reached the last of his traps near a fallen tree. The rope was still frozen stiff. He sighed and looked around, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. The world seemed endless and empty, like it had swallowed every living thing. He whispered to himself, "Maybe tomorrow." His voice sounded strange in the silence, as if the forest didn't want him there. Ethan turned back toward his small wooden shelter, an old hunting cabin that had somehow survived the collapse. It wasn't warm, but it kept out the wind. Inside he had a few blankets, a broken lantern, and an old picture. His family. His wife and daughter smiled from a time that no longer existed. He had lost them when the sickness came, when the skies turned dark and the cities burned. He didn't even know if anyone else was still alive. He sat beside the dying fire and rubbed his hands together. His fingers were numb. His body ached. His heart felt heavier each day. Outside, the snow kept falling. That night, hunger kept him awake. He lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling made of dark wood. He could hear the wind push against the walls, whispering like ghosts. Every sound made him alert: the crack of wood, the groan of the wind, the sound of his own breathing. He thought of food, warm bread, cooked meat, anything. He thought of how good it used to feel to be full, to be safe, to sleep without fear. When dawn came, he forced himself to get up. The world outside was white and silent again. He put on his coat, grabbed his spear, and went to check the traps one more time. As he walked deeper into the forest, something felt strange. The air seemed different, colder, heavier, almost alive. He looked around but saw nothing. Only trees, snow, and the pale morning light. Then, in the distance, he saw it. One of his traps had been triggered. His heart jumped. He started running, slipping on the ice, his breath fast and visible. The snow crunched loudly under his boots. He couldn't believe it. Finally, something was caught. Maybe it was a rabbit, maybe a fox. Anything was better than nothing. When he reached the trap, his hands were shaking with excitement. The wooden frame had fallen perfectly. Something moved inside the pile of snow. He kneeled down, breathing hard, and brushed the snow away carefully. At first, he saw only a faint glow, a soft silver light shining weakly through the ice. His mind froze. That couldn't be real. He blinked and leaned closer. Then he saw her. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't any creature he had ever seen. It was a tiny girl, no taller than his hand. Her skin shimmered pale blue like moonlight, and her hair glowed faintly, almost like starlight in the snow. Small wings folded weakly against her back, frozen and covered in frost. Her eyes opened slowly, two bright silver orbs that seemed to look right through him. Ethan fell back, startled, his breath catching in his throat. "What? What are you?" he whispered. The tiny girl moved weakly, trying to stand, but her legs shook. Her voice was soft, trembling, and strange, like music from far away. "Please, don't hurt me," she said. Ethan just stared, his mind unable to understand what he was seeing. Was he dreaming? Was he dying from hunger and losing his mind? He rubbed his eyes, but she was still there, glowing, breathing, alive. She looked up at him again, frightened but trusting. A tear rolled down her blue cheek. Ethan's heart started to pound. Whatever she wasn't from this world. And in that frozen silence, as snow fell around them like white ashes, Ethan realized this was not just another day of survival. Something impossible had found him. Ethan couldn't move. He just stared at the glowing little being trapped in the snow. His heart beat fast and his hands trembled. For a long time he didn't even breathe. The cold air stung his face, but he barely felt it. The small creature was real. He could see her breath fogging in the air, her tiny chest rising and falling. She was alive. He had seen many strange things since the world fell apart, but nothing like this. This was no dream, no madness. The glow from her skin was soft but bright enough to light the snow around her. It looked warm, too warm for this frozen wasteland. "Are you human?" Ethan whispered carefully. The tiny girl blinked slowly, confusion and fear in her shining silver eyes. Her voice was weak and broken. Man?" She repeated the word, almost tasting it like it was strange to her. Then she shook her head faintly. Ethan looked around. There was nothing else. No ship, no tracks, no sign of how she got here. Only endless snow and trees. It made no sense. Her small body was shaking badly. The frost was biting her wings, turning their edges white. She looked fragile, like a living piece of glass about to break. Ethan's first instinct was fear. He didn't know what she was or what she could do. Maybe she was dangerous. Maybe she carried something deadly. But as he watched her trying to move, trying to crawl weakly out of the trap, all he could see was a small child, lost and freezing. His humanity spoke louder than his fear. Slowly, he reached forward and lifted the trap off her. The moment the pressure was gone, she tried to crawl away but fell face first into the snow. She didn't have the strength to stand. Ethan sighed softly. "Hey, easy," he said in a low, gentle voice. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl looked up, shivering, her voice trembling. "Cold, please." Ethan's heart sank. She could barely speak, but he understood. He carefully wrapped her in a piece of cloth from his jacket pocket and held her close to his chest. Her glow dimmed as he carried her through the forest, his arms tight around her small, fragile body. The walk back to his cabin felt longer than usual. The wind bit his skin, but he didn't stop. The little being's faint warmth against his chest gave him a strange feeling, like hope. Something he hadn't felt in years. When he reached the cabin, he shut the door quickly to keep out the cold. The fire was almost gone, only a few glowing coals left. Ethan threw in a handful of wood and blew gently until the flames came back to life. He placed the tiny girl near the fire on a soft cloth. Steam rose as the ice melted from her wings. She flinched at the heat at first, then sighed softly and relaxed. Ethan sat beside her, still unsure what to do. He had no idea if she could eat or drink what he had. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his last piece of bread, dry and hard, but it was all he had. He broke a small piece and placed it near her. "Here," he said. The girl looked at it, then at him, unsure. Slowly, she reached out and took the crumb in her small blue hands. She sniffed it, then took a tiny bite. Her face softened. She smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ethan froze again. Her voice sounded strange, like she was learning the words for the first time. "You can speak English?" he asked softly. She tilted her head. "I learn. Memory. Hurt." She touched the side of her head and winced. Ethan frowned. She had no clear memory, maybe no idea how she got here. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl looked into the fire, thinking hard. "Name," she said softly. Then she closed her eyes and whispered, "Lyra." "Lyra," Ethan repeated, testing the sound. It fit her somehow. Soft, fragile, but full of mystery. She looked back at him, her silver eyes glowing gently. "You human?" "Yes," Ethan said, nodding. "The last one, maybe," Lyra frowned. "Last?" He looked at the fire sadly. "My world is gone. No people left. Only me." For a moment neither spoke. The fire crackled quietly between them. Then Lyra whispered, "Not gone. You still light." Ethan didn't understand what she meant, but her words touched something deep inside him. For the first time in years, something had spoken to him with kindness. But deep inside, he still felt uneasy. Who was she really? Where did she come from? And why did she fall into his trap out here in the middle of nowhere? Outside, the wind howled again. The flames flickered. Ethan looked at her small, glowing figure beside the fire, fragile yet beautiful. Something told him his quiet, lonely days were over, and whatever Lyra was, she had brought something with her, something that could change everything. The wind outside the cabin roared like a wild beast, shaking the wooden walls and blowing cold air through every crack. Snowflakes danced through the broken window. landing quietly on the floor. The night was deep and dark, but inside the small fire gave a soft orange glow, a circle of warmth in a world of endless cold. Ethan sat close to the fire, his eyes half on the flames, half on the strange little creature resting nearby. Lyra, that was the name she had given herself, a name that sounded both fragile and ancient. She was still weak, lying wrapped in a piece of cloth Ethan had torn from his own coat. Her wings, now half thawed, shimmered faintly in the light, dripping melted ice onto the floor. Each drop sizzled softly as it hit the warm stone near the fire. Ethan had no idea what she was. Alien, spirit, something else entirely. But every time he looked at her small face, peaceful in sleep, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Care. The last time he had cared for someone, it was his daughter. The memory hurt like fire. He could still see her small hands, her smile, her laughter before everything went wrong. Before the sickness, before the silence, he shook his head to push the thought away. Now there was only this, a small glowing being from somewhere far beyond. Lyra stirred suddenly, her eyes opening. The silver light in them was dim but still beautiful. She looked frightened for a moment, then saw Ethan beside her and relaxed. "Where am I?" she whispered softly, her voice still weak. "Safe," Ethan said simply. "You're safe here. For now." She looked around the small cabin, the cracked walls, the old shelves, the broken furniture. "Your home?" she asked. Ethan gave a small laugh. "It's not much of a home, but it's all I have." She studied him quietly, tilting her head like a curious child. "You live here, alone?" "Yes," he said after a pause. "For a long time." Lyra lowered her eyes, sadness flickering in them. "That is, yeah, lonely." Ethan didn't reply. The fire filled the silence. After a moment, Lyra tried to sit up but winced in pain. Ethan reached forward quickly to help her, careful not to touch her wings. "Easy," he said. "You're hurt." She nodded weakly. "I fell. From the sky." Ethan's eyes widened. "From the sky? You mean a ship?" Lyra frowned, struggling to find the words. "Yeah, my vessel. It broke. I was escaping." "Escaping what?" Ethan asked carefully. Her small face tightened with fear. "Hunters," she whispered. "They came for me." Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Hunters?" She nodded. "Not like you, machines. They follow light. My kind cannot hide for long." Ethan leaned back, confused. "Machines? Hunters?" None of it made sense, but the look in her eyes told him it was true. "You mean they're still out there?" he asked. She looked toward the window where the snow fell endlessly. "Yes," she said softly. "They search. Always." For a while, neither of them spoke. The sound of the fire was the only thing between them, a small heartbeat in a dead world. Finally, Ethan got up and moved to a shelf. He pulled down a small metal cup and filled it with melted snow from a pot. He placed it near Lyra. "Drink this," he said. "It's not much, but it's clean." She smiled faintly. "You are kind," he shrugged. "Just doing what anyone would do." Lyra shook her head. "No, not anyone." The way she said it made Ethan stop. Her words felt heavier than they should. As the night grew deeper, Lyra's glow dimmed again. She looked tired but calm. Her wings twitched slightly in her sleep. Ethan sat nearby, watching her. He should have been afraid. He should have thrown her out or run far away. But he couldn't. Something about her felt important. He didn't understand it yet, but deep inside, a feeling told him their meeting wasn't an accident. Outside, the wind screamed against the cabin. Snow piled higher against the walls. Ethan stood and walked to the window. Through the storm, far in the distance, he saw something. Faint red lights blinking between the trees. They moved slowly, almost searching. His breath caught. He whispered, "Hunters." He turned back toward Lyra. She was still asleep, unaware of what was coming. Ethan gripped his spear tightly, staring into the white storm. For the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing her. And deep down he knew the world outside had just woken up. The night stretched on endlessly. The wind had grown quiet now, too quiet. Ethan sat by the dying fire, listening to every sound beyond the cabin walls. The groan of old wood, the whisper of snow slipping from the roof, the distant hum of something unnatural. Lyra was asleep again, her glow dim and soft. She looked peaceful, almost human, wrapped in his old coat. But Ethan couldn't rest. The memory of the red lights out in the forest would not leave his mind. He had seen many strange things in the ruins of the old world. Shadows that moved, lights that flickered in the distance but those red eyes had felt different, purposeful, watching. He stood up quietly and moved to the window. The storm had slowed, and through the drifting snow the sky was visible, dark, clouded, and strangely alive. Then he saw it again, a line of pale blue lights moving silently across the clouds. Not stars, not planes, something else. They moved with perfect rhythm as if searching. Ethan's heart beat faster. He turned back toward Lyra, who now stirred in her sleep, her small body tensing as if she could feel the same thing. Then her eyes snapped open, glowing brighter than before, wide with fear. "They're here," she whispered. Ethan froze. "The hunters?" Lyra nodded weakly. "They searched the sky for my signal. I thought I could hide. I was wrong." Outside, the air began to vibrate with a faint humming sound. It wasn't loud, but deep, like the world itself was holding its breath. The snowflakes shook in the air before landing. Ethan felt his throat go dry. "What do they want from you?" Lyra looked at him, her small face full of worry. "I was not supposed to come here. My world forbids contact with humans, but I wanted to see. I wanted to know if your kind still lived." Ethan blinked. "You came here on purpose?" She nodded slowly. "I wanted to learn, but they found out. They sent the hunters to bring me back, or destroy me." Ethan's grip tightened on his spear. "Destroy you? You're just a child." Lyra looked down sadly. "To them I am a danger. My kind believe humans must never rise again." Ethan felt his heart twist. "Why, what did we ever do to them?" Her eyes shimmered with silver tears. "Your people once reached the stars. You fought wars in the skies. You frightened the universe. My people watched, and decided your kind must never return." The cabin creaked as another sound filled the night, a low metallic thrum that grew louder, closer. Through the window, Ethan saw shadows passing over the trees, shapes too large to be human. The snow glowed red in their light. Lyra crawled closer to the fire, her tiny hands trembling. "They found me," she said softly. "They can sense my energy." Ethan crouched beside her. "Can you stop it?" She shook her head. Not for long, then she closed her eyes. The glow on her skin began to fade, dimming like a candle. The firelight flickered weakly as if her energy was drawing it away. Outside, the humming grew stronger. The red light stopped just beyond the tree line. Ethan could feel the vibration through the floor. The machines, or whatever they were scanning the area. He whispered, "We have to go now." Lyra opened her eyes, weak but determined. "If we move, they will see. If we stay, they will find us." Ethan grabbed his old backpack, shoving in a few pieces of dried wood, a blanket, and his knife. "Then we run and hope they chase the wind." He reached out his hand. "Come on." For a moment, Lyra hesitated. Her silver eyes met his. Then she nodded and climbed into his coat pocket. Curling up against his chest, her glow fading completely until she looked almost invisible. Ethan blew out the fire and opened the door. The freezing wind hit him like knives, but he didn't stop. He stepped into the white storm, moving quietly between the trees. Behind him, the cabin stood alone, dark and cold, until a red beam of light swept across it from above, melting the snow instantly. The machines had arrived. Ethan ran. His breath came out in heavy clouds. The forest echoed with strange mechanical clicks and the faint sound of moving metal. In his chest, he could feel Lyra trembling. She whispered something in her language, soft, rhythmic, like a prayer. The lights above the trees brightened. Searching. Ethan looked up once and saw them clearly for the first time. Floating shapes of silver and black, smooth like glass with lines of glowing red that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. They were beautiful and terrifying. The sky itself seemed to be watching them. Ethan ducked behind a fallen tree, breathing hard. "How far will they go to find you?" he whispered. "All the way," she said, "until nothing is left." Her words sank into him like ice. He looked back toward the sky, where the light still searched, sweeping across the world like burning eyes. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The sky had found them, and it would not stop watching. The forest was no longer silent. The ground trembled softly with each pulse from the sky. Red light flickered through the trees like lightning, cutting through the mist and snow. Ethan crouched behind an old fallen log, his heart pounding so loudly he feared the machines might hear it. In his coat, close to his chest, Lyra trembled. Her glow was almost gone, hidden deep within the folds of cloth. Only the faint shimmer of her silver eyes showed she was still awake. "Ethan," she whispered weakly, "they are near." He nodded, gripping his spear tightly. "I know." The air around them felt electric, charged, alive. Somewhere behind them, the sound of metal footsteps echoed faintly, slow, heavy, and precise. The hunters were searching the forest, moving closer with each minute. Ethan peeked over the log. Through the storm of snow, he saw one of them for the first time. A tall, slender machine walking on two legs, its body smooth and dark like polished glass. Red lines pulsed across its form, glowing brighter every few seconds. Where a face should have been, there was only a single circular light, scanning everything in front of it. It stopped. The red light spread across the trees, burning small patches of bark as it scanned. Ethan ducked down again, holding his breath. His whole body tensed. He whispered, "How many are there?" Lyra closed her eyes, her small forehead glowing faintly as if she was sensing them. 4, maybe 5. "They are close. One to the east, one behind." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Then we can't run forever." He looked around quickly. The forest was thick, but the snow was deep. Every step left a clear trail, easy for the machines to follow. He could go west, to the river, where the ice might hide his tracks. But that would mean walking out into the open. No cover. No chance if they saw him. His mind raced. Lyra's small voice broke the silence. "You should leave me." Ethan blinked, shocked. "What?" She looked up from his coat, her tiny face sad but calm. "They want me, not you. If you let me go, they will stop. You will live." Ethan shook his head immediately. "I'm not leaving you." "You must," she said firmly, her voice shaking. "I am not human. My kind, we do not die like you. If they take me, they will not kill me, but you, they will destroy you." Ethan swallowed hard. He looked at the machines through the snow. They were spreading out, moving slowly but surely. There was no time left to think. He could save himself, run deeper into the forest, hide, and maybe live another day. But something deep inside him refused. For years he had lived only to survive. Eat, sleep, wake, survive. But now, for the first time, there was a reason. Someone else who needed him. Someone who trusted him. He looked down at Lyra, her body shaking, her wings half frozen again. "You're wrong," he whispered. "I can't just leave you. Not after finding you." Lyra's eyes softened. "Why?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Because you remind me of someone I couldn't save." Lyra didn't speak. She simply looked at him, and a single tear, glowing silver, rolled down her cheek. Then the forest lit up in red. A beam of light swept over their hiding spot. Ethan turned quickly, covering Lyra with both hands. The light passed, burning the edge of his sleeve. The smell of smoke filled the air. "They saw us," he said. "Hold on." He lifted his spear and ran. His boots crunched through the snow, his breath white and fast. Behind him the machines moved, smooth and silent but deadly. Red beams cut through the forest, melting snow and tree trunks alike. Ethan zigzagged through the woods, heart racing. He dove behind another tree, panting, clutching Lyra close. She was whispering something again. Words he didn't understand, full of rhythm and energy. Then the snow around them shimmered. And suddenly, everything went quiet. The machine's red lights froze mid-motion. The sound of their hum dimmed. Even the wind stopped. "What did you do?" Ethan whispered. Lyra's glow brightened faintly. "A shield. It will not last long." She looked at him with sad eyes. "Please, Ethan, if you stay, you die." "Let me go." Ethan shook his head. "Not happening." He stood, tightening his grip on her and the spear. "We're going to the old tower. There's a signal dish there. If you can use it, maybe your people will hear you." Lyra blinked. "It is far." "I know," Ethan said. "But it's our only chance." The shield around them began to flicker, the silence breaking as the machine started to move again. Ethan turned toward the west, where the shadow of the tower stood faintly against the snowy horizon. He whispered, "Hold on, Lyra, I made my choice." And with that, the lonely survivor, who once lived only to stay alive, ran into the storm. No longer just a man, but a protector. Behind him, The hunters screamed into the night and the forest burned red. The storm had grown fierce again. Snow whipped across the forest in thick waves, blinding Ethan as he pushed forward through the dark. His legs burned, his lungs ached, and every breath came out like smoke from a dying fire. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Lyra was pressed close to his chest inside his coat, her small body trembling. The faint blue glow from her skin flickered like a weak candle. Every few seconds, Ethan looked down, afraid she might fade away completely. Behind them, the night was alive with light, red beams flashing through the trees, shadows of machines moving with smooth, deadly precision. Their steps made no sound, but the air seemed to shiver with their presence. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. "They are faster now. They locked on my signal." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we move faster." He stumbled over a frozen log, fell to one knee, and forced himself up again. His vision blurred from exhaustion. For a moment he wanted to stop, just stop and rest. But then he felt the faint heartbeat against his chest. It reminded him why he couldn't. The world had taken everything from him, his family, his home, his purpose. But now this tiny creature had given him something back. A reason to fight. He would not lose her. Through the snow, the outline of the old radio tower appeared in the distance. Tall, broken, reaching into the storm like the skeleton of a giant. Half its structure was buried in ice, but the top still pointed toward the clouds. "That's it," Ethan said between breaths. "Just a little more." Lyra looked up weakly. "If we reach it, I can call them." "My people," he nodded. "Then that's where we go." A sharp flash of red cut through the storm. A beam missed him by inches, slicing through a tree trunk. The wood exploded into sparks and ice. Ethan dove behind a snowbank, clutching Lyra tight. He peeked out. One of the hunters was close now, moving steadily through the snow, its red eye burning bright. It lifted one metallic arm, aiming a glowing weapon. "Hold on," Ethan shouted. He threw himself sideways just as the beam fired again. It hit the ground, melting snow into steam. The blast threw Ethan backward, slamming him into the icy ground. Pain shot through his shoulder. The world spun for a moment. Lyra cried out, glowing brighter. The air around her shimmered suddenly, forming a faint silver sphere. The next beam hit it and bounced off, scattering into tiny sparks. The hunter paused, scanning the strange light. Ethan groaned, forcing himself up. What was that?" Lyra's voice shook. "Energy field. But it drains me." Her glow was fading fast. Ethan saw her small hands trembling. She was burning herself out to protect him. "No more," he said. "Save your strength." He reached for his spear, now half buried in snow, and stared at the machine's glowing eye. "You want her? You'll have to go through me," he charged. The hunter turned, quick as lightning, but Ethan was faster this time, desperation giving him strength. He thrust the spear forward, jamming it into the creature's leg joint. Sparks flew. The machine staggered, its lights flickering. Ethan pulled the spear free and swung again, hitting the red eye with all his strength. The glass cracked. A sharp, mechanical scream filled the air. Then the machine exploded in a burst of light, collapsing into the snow. Ethan fell back, breathing hard. His hands shook, his arm numb. He had done it, destroyed one, but there were more. He could see their lights now, dozens of red eyes glowing in the storm, spreading out like a pack of wolves. "Ethan," Lyra whispered weakly, "you can't fight them all." He looked down at her, pale, fading, but still alive. "Then we don't fight," he said. "We finish this." He turned toward the tower, still half a mile away, and began to run again. The ground shook behind him as the hunters closed in. Red beams cut through the snow, missing by inches. The tower grew larger with each step, its metal frame groaning in the wind. Finally, they reached its base. Ethan dropped to his knees, gasping for air. The metal ladder leading up was rusted, but still standing. He looked at Lyra. "Can you climb?" She shook her head weakly. "I will guide you, but you must help me reach the top." He nodded and started climbing, one freezing rung at a time, holding her close. The wind howled around them, threatening to tear him off. Halfway up, a beam of red light hit the tower, making it shudder violently. Ethan almost slipped, but held on tight. At last, he reached the platform near the top. The view took his breath away. The world below was on fire with red lights moving through the snow. The hunters had surrounded the area. Lyra lifted her head, her glow faint but steady. "Here," she said. "Place me near the dish." Ethan set her down on the cold metal surface. She placed her small hands against the tower, and lines of blue light spread from her fingertips, racing across the frozen steel. The lights pulsed upward, shooting into the sky. The clouds began to swirl, glowing faintly silver. Ethan looked down below. The hunters had stopped moving. They looked up at the sky as if waiting. Lyra's voice was soft but strong now. "I sent the signal." Ethan smiled, relief washing over him. "Good, they'll come for you." But Lyra shook her head slowly. "Not just for me," Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Her silver eyes met his, shining brighter than ever. "They will come. For us both." The storm began to quiet. The sky, once dark and violent, now shimmered with faint silver clouds. Ethan stood on the tower platform, his coat whipping in the cold wind, his breath coming in short, hard bursts. He looked at Lyra, the tiny, glowing alien girl who had somehow changed everything. She stood weakly on the metal plate, her small hands pressed against the frozen steel. Blue light ran through the tower's frame, pulsing upward like veins of energy. The entire structure hummed softly, alive once more after decades of silence. Far above, the clouds opened slightly, and Ethan saw strange shapes moving beyond them, massive shadows drifting silently. The air felt electric, full of power he could barely understand. He knew. They were here. Lyra's glow flickered, dimming slowly. She turned her silver eyes toward him, smiling faintly. "They heard me," she said. "My people, they are coming." Ethan looked out across the frozen wasteland. The red lights below, the hunting machines, had stopped moving. They stood still, their glowing eyes fading one by one. It was as if the signal had frozen them, disconnected them from their control. "You did it," he said, his voice rough but full of relief. "You saved us both." Lyra shook her head gently. "No, I saved you," Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked up toward the sky, her little wings trembling. "The signal I sent, it tells them where I am, but it also tells them what I touched, what I became a part of. They will come and take me home." Ethan knelt beside her, confused. "That's good, isn't it? You'll be safe now." Her eyes softened. "Yes, but they will not understand you. They will see you as danger, as someone who stole their child." The words hit him like a knife. "No, I didn't. I only helped you." "I know," she whispered, her voice kind and tired. "But they will not see it that way." The tower vibrated under his feet. A deep rumbling sound filled the air. The clouds split open, revealing a massive ship, silver and bright like a star come to life. Its light poured over the frozen forest, turning everything to white and gold. Ethan shielded his eyes. He had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying. A beam of soft light descended from the ship, touching the top of the tower where Lyra stood. She turned to him, smiling weakly. "It's time." Ethan shook his head. "No, don't go. You can stay." She reached out, her small hand touching his cheek. Her skin was warm and glowing. "You gave me warmth when I was freezing. You gave me food when I was starving. You protected me when I was hunted. You showed me something my people forgot long ago. What's that?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Kindness," she said softly. For a moment, silence filled the air. Only the wind whispered around them. Then, slowly, her body began to dissolve into small blue lights, floating upward into the beam. She looked peaceful, almost like a child falling asleep. "Lyra!" Ethan cried, reaching for her, but his hand passed through the light. Her voice echoed softly around him. "Don't be sad, Ethan. You are not alone anymore." The lights rose higher, vanishing into the ship above. Then in a flash, the beam faded and the sky went silent once again. The massive ship drifted upward, disappearing into the silver clouds. Ethan stood there for a long time, staring at the empty sky. The cold wind blew through his hair. The tower hummed one last time, then fell still. He felt an emptiness inside, but also something warm, deep in his chest. Slowly, he looked down at the metal surface where Lyra had stood. There, resting on the steel, was a small glowing object, a crystal the size of a pebble, pulsing with faint blue light. Ethan picked it up carefully. It was warm, just like her touch. Inside, faint patterns of light moved, forming shapes, tiny stars, and one small figure that looked almost like her. He smiled, tears freezing on his cheeks. "Goodbye, little one," he whispered. As he descended the tower, the storm cleared completely. The sun broke through for the first time in weeks, casting golden light across the frozen world. The trees sparkled with frost, and the snow seemed to glow from within. The red machines below were motionless now, lifeless metal statues half buried in the snow. Whatever control had powered them was gone. When Ethan reached the ground, he looked around. The world felt different, softer somehow. He slipped the glowing crystal into his pocket and began to walk back toward his cabin. The journey was long, but the cold didn't bite as sharply anymore. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost wandering through a dead world. He had a memory to hold on to, proof that kindness could still exist even between stars. That night, when he reached his cabin, he placed the crystal near the fire. Its glow filled the small wooden room with gentle blue light. Ethan sat beside it, whispering softly, "Thank you, Lyra, wherever you are." Outside, the night sky shimmered with new stars, and one of them, far in the distance, pulsed with the same faint blue light. Ethan smiled. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure: he was not alone anymore.